Hey everybody, this is Steve from PopCultureMaven.com. We're back with this week's new comic book reviews. So, just a heads up, in a couple weeks, I'll be going to San Diego Comic-Con. And so there won't be any reviews that particular week. So we'll have to, so the week after that will be a kind of catch-up week because the convention starts on Wednesday. New comics come out on Wednesday, so it's unlikely that I'll be able to read everything and do a video before I hit the road to San Diego. So just a heads up on that. So that'll be not next week. I think the week after that. It starts the 20th, so whatever that week is. So hopefully we'll see if it's not a big week. So before we get started with this, we got a ton of new books. I just wanted to point out that this week the Last Ronin hardcover collection came out. It's really nice. It's a hardcover. It includes all the issues. The only thing it doesn't, it includes some of the alternate covers, but not all of them. Each issue actually had a listing for all the covers, including the store variants and stuff like that. So so that's a little disappointing that it didn't include those, as far as I could tell, because I've only glanced through it. But otherwise, it's got everything else. And it's got it's got an introduction by Robert Rodriguez, so it's a nice collection. So if you missed out of any of the issues because it took so long to come out, now that's available, so you can pick it up at your local comic shop. It's a pretty big week, kids. Lots of new books and quote unquote returning champions. We'll see how well that turns out. But it's a really big week. So let's just get right to it. First off, we have Batman number 125, written by Chip Zdarsky, with artwork by George Jimenez. And there's a Catwoman backup, also written by Chip Zdarsky, with artwork by Belen Ortega. So this is, it's not number one, but it really is. It's a new jumping on point for with a new creative team. Although George Jimenez has been drawing Batman, but he's really doing a different style here, and a lot of it has to do with Zdarsky's much more gritty story. So basically, what it is, it's still Bruce Wayne is still broke, and but he's still Batman. And so we also, the big kind of surprise is actually Tim Drake is back as Robin. So it's actually kind of nice that we have a Batman and Robin book. That's kind of been really missing for quite a while. So what it is that Penguin is kind of doing the Robin Hood thing, but like so what he is he's going after billionaires and stuff who which is ironic because he grew up with the silver spoon in his mouth. And so he's kind of doing the Robin Hood thing, but we also find out, and this is not really, it's a bit of a spoiler, so that the Penguin is dying. So that's kind of what he's also doing a thing to set up, I won't give that away, to set up Batman to basically get one last trick in on him. Also Clayface shows up. So what's interesting about this is that Zdarsky, it's obviously kind of, it's a lot darker, but I think it's more of a dark detective story. Now there is action, there's the Batman stuff, but I think there is a bit more detective, which is always a plus. I think when you're doing a Batman book, that's always it's actually a good thing, I think. Jimenez's artwork is really, really just wonderful. I also love the fact that his Penguin, it looks a lot like Danny DeVito's Penguin from Batman Returns. I wouldn't say that he's copying it. I think my opinion is that he's inspired by it. But his Clayface is really, really cool. And it's really nice to see Tim Drake back as Robin. So that's a big plus. I really enjoyed what Zdarsky set up in this first issue. There is a new quote unquote, we don't know if he's a villain or a hero. There's a new character called Failsafe. He shows up at the end, but we have no idea really who he is, what he is, and all that. So that's really kind of a new character setup. But really, the main story is really good. The artwork's fantastic. It's a really good jumping on point. And I've really liked a lot of Zdarsky's other his more recent books, and so I think he's gonna fit in really well. Hopefully, he'll stay on the book for a while. Usually, most of the time they commit to at least a year, so hopefully he'll do that. The really nice thing is the backup really, it complements the main story. It's not just, oh, here we have a backup. He also writes that, so it does fit in. So there is so what it is, there's the Penguins ice club, and so there's other mob members that are like, oh well, he's gone, so we're going to take it over. And what it is the underbroker is actually, there's a will left by Penguin, and so what he does is he hires Selena to go out and find, because they have to read the will, and X amount of, and certain people have to be there to have their will read. So they're hiring her to go find them. So it's an interesting thing. And like I said, it's really nice. It's a rarity, because a lot of times backups are completely separate. And this, it's a separate story, but it really kind of has to do with the main story, which is really nice, because there's not that conflict of like, it not fitting in. And I really appreciate that. Ortega's artwork's actually really nice. It's different obviously than Jimenez, but it does it fits the story really well, and it looks nice. So it's definitely that's a big plus, and it really adds greatly. I really enjoyed this. I know we're kind of Batmaned out, but I would definitely say this is worth picking up. It's a good jumping on point. I think Zdarsky does a really good first chapter, sets things up really well, but gives you like the goods. It wasn't just all exposition. He actually moved the story along, which was a big plus. So definitely check that out this week. Next up, we have Starhenge, written and drawn by Liam Sharp. Now, a lot of you know I'm a huge Liam Sharp fan, so I was very excited to read this. And so is it worth the build-up and everything? And I think it is. The one thing I will forewarn you is that this first issue is very kind of exposition heavy. There's a lot of setup here. It's not so much there's not a lot of story. It's just pure setup. But Liam, the one thing I love about Sharp's writing, and we saw this in when he did the Brave and Bold miniseries with Batman and Wonder Woman, he really goes for the long game, in the sense of each issue is really like a chapter. So it's one of those things, it's don't kind of expect a lot per se out of this first issue, even though there's a ton of information there, but a lot of it's real setup. But really, basically, it's a new version of the Excalibur story with, Merlin, the Knights of the Round Table, and all that. Although we don't see those, Merlin's the only one we see in this first issue. But it's really interesting how he bounces back and forth between like present, past, and future, and yet that is very challenging to do. But he's very adamant about keeping you in the loop, like, okay, we're going back in time, we're now in the present, we're dealing with this part of the story. So it is, I was never confused, and I really have to hand it to Sharp that he really does a good job of keeping that in check, because that's a really hard thing to do. But I also love the fact that he really, along with his Brave and Bold, if you haven't read that, really check that out. I love how he steeps his story in mythology. It's very much a fantasy story, but it's also like fantasy science fiction, which is kind of a rare blend, but he really does it well. I mean, once again, like I said, this is a setup issue. There's a lot to take in this first issue, but I think the groundwork is definitely there to get you excited to see where he takes it, especially with the kind of the reveal at the end. And what can I say about his artwork? And I love The one thing I really love about the art in this book is there's times where it's very abstract, but it really fits what he's doing with the story, and it's a bold move, and he's one of those rare talents that can actually pull that off, both story and art wise. So I really enjoyed it, but like I said, I want to forewarn you, it's definitely, really, there's a lot of exposition and a setup, but he goes for the long game. And once again, with what I've seen here in this first issue, this is going to be really a book to watch. I'm really excited about this. I really like the first issue, and I really can't wait to see where Sharp takes it. But definitely, it's definitely worth checking out this week. Next up, we have Patrick Todd, #1. Written by Ed Brisson with artwork by Gavin Gilderoy. So what it is Patrick has the power to basically possess people and get them to do certain things. So it starts off with a bank robbery where he tells this guy to go in and rob the bank. It's not just some random guy he picks up on the street. It's actually this guy is like a child molester or a stalker or something. And so he specifically picks him because it's one, he's going to get arrested because he tells him, after he gets the money, he's like, go turn yourself in. So he's using a criminal to do things that he needs. So he needs money to the main thing we see in this first issue is his mom's in a nursing home type situation, so he has to kind of pay. That's why he had this guy rob the bank. So once again, he can basically tell people, hey, possess them, and hey, you need to do this or do that. And so that's kind of the basic setup here. And but then what's interesting is that he runs across these people that he can't possess. So that's kind of really where the twist in the story comes in this first issue. And I really, once again, I think in some respects, the story's been told before, but Brisson, I think the way he tells the story gives it kind of a fresh coat of paint, so to speak. And I did enjoy that. And I really, Gilderoy's artwork is actually really quite nice. And I liked how it kind of had a simplistic look and feel to it. And I think that the story really benefited from that. The art wasn't overdone. And I think with this type of story, had it been really flashy art, I don't think it would have worked as well. And kudos for Gidry for his style on doing this story. I kind of liked it. Like I said, I wasn't necessarily blown away by it, but I did enjoy it. So if you're looking for something a little bit different, it's definitely, I think it shows a lot of promise from this first issue. Next up, we have Mindmgmt Bootleg #1, written by Matt Kent with artwork by Farrell Dalrymple. So I had read the first few issues of Mindmgmt that came out quite a while ago, so I'm not necessarily super familiar with some of the premise, but it really does have to do with people with like special mind abilities. That's the basic premise, and the good thing is, if you've never read Mindmgmt, you can jump into this. This is a good jumping in point to kind of see how Kent has created this world. So what it is there's this kid Keto, and he's one of the 4 survivors of the Zanzibar disaster. And so, but he has like this ability, like he sees things. And so somebody suggests that he goes to this this clinic or whatever. And so he goes there, and when basically what it ends up being is like a test to see if a person has these abilities, because they're looking for these 4 people. So he does the test, and you think that he doesn't pass, but he actually does. It's a really great setup. I really have to give it to Kent. I really loved the setup here for this story. And it's really intriguing. I love Matt Kent's writing, and I also love his artwork. But it's really interesting, and I like how the setup here was for this story, and I also love the fact that it was a good jumping on point for people that have never read Mind Management. Dalrymple's artwork is really nice, and it really fits the story very well. Now, Kent actually did the artwork. He wrote and drew the main Mind Management series. So this was actually very interesting to have somebody else come in. But I think Dalrymple's art style really fits what Kent does with his own artwork, and it really is a good looking book. I really like this first issue, and it really is a good setup, so I think it's definitely worth checking out for sure. I really enjoy this. Next up, we have Black Adam, the Justice Society Files, Hawkman #1, written by Kevin Scott, with artwork with pencils by Scott Eaton and inks by Norm Rapmund. And then there's a backup story with Black Adam written by Brian Q. Miller with artwork by Marco Santucci. So these are lead up because the Black Adam movie is coming out in October. So there's going to be a number of single character one-shots of these. Now, I would like to say that this would get me excited for the movie, but unfortunately, it's not so much that this book is bad, it's just so basic. It's really just like, here's a template of 10 things you need to do in a superhero story, and literally the Scott just checked them all off as he was writing the script. And it's just so basic that it's like you've read this a million times. And he doesn't bring anything new to the table story-wise. This is just a very basic, so the bad guy trying to steal something. The only twist that he does is the guy dies, but he comes back as a ghost to because he makes a deal kind of with the devil sort of thing. It's like, well, I'll kill Hawkman for you. And of course, that doesn't work. And then, it's just sad. It's just really sad that it's not very good. And then it's like, it's $6. So and the backup, the Black Adam backup is okay, but it's only one chapter. And considering how mediocre the main story is, it's like, well, the backup was okay, but there's not, unless the next one is miraculously better. I don't know. This was not good. It's definitely we're skipping this week. It was just really average and basic. Next up, we have Prodigy, the Icarus Society #1, written by Mark Miller with artwork by Matteo Ruffini. So really kind of the best way to describe this, think of like Bruce Wayne, but he doesn't become Batman, but he kind of is Batman. He just doesn't put on a suit. So he's this rich guy, but he's like super smart. So he basically solves like these crimes that nobody else can solve, or, so he's super rich. He has houses in like every country, probably every city. I think Miller said he had like 135 houses, and it's just so the character Edison Crane. So he solves these crimes, and then what it is, one guy that he put away, it basically is getting revenge, and he has poisoned him, and for him not to die, he needs to break this guy out of prison. That's the first issue. And so it's, as with, I hate to say it, with most Mark Miller books, it's okay. It's not great. It's not terrible. It's basically a setup for a Netflix possible pilot. That's what he's been doing with these books lately. So it's something that could be done as a television series, and it's okay. I don't think even a series would blow me away. It's decent. It's nothing to really jump up and down about. It's typical Mark Miller story. Brafingi's artwork is actually, it's nice. It's a good looking book, but it's just average. I wouldn't say that it really blew any air at my skirt this week. Next up, we have Promethee 1313, written by Andy Diggle, with artwork by Sean Martinbrow. So what this is there's this lady Nina who has had like a near death, or she has these visions of the end of the world, like these aliens are going to come and destroy the earth. And so she's at a UFO conference, and then she just basically blurts out that, like, well, I just made everything up. And so the crowd tries to kill her. So they get her out of there, and her bodyguard, or her, her wrangler, ends up being like a CIA type agent, who ends up, they specifically took her off her meds so she can actually, even though she thinks that she is only hallucinating this stuff, it's like this secret sort of, I guess you could say, government conspiracy is basically taking her off her meds, because they're actually, she has these visions that are coming true, so they're basically trying to figure out what she knows so they can defend the earth. That's the basic premise here. It's one of those things, I think it's like you've kind of seen this before, but there are some interesting twists. Diggle has some good ideas here. I wouldn't say that I did enjoy reading it. It didn't necessarily blow me away, but I did enjoy it. Martin Burrow's artwork is nice. It's a pretty decent thing. I think it's one of those, it has a good idea. The question is it going to do something different than what you think it will do? That's going to be the key. First issue's, pretty decent. It's really going to hinge on like what the second issue of this book does. So it was okay, but kind of worth checking out. It's a minor recommendation. Next up, we have the Ballad of Gordon Barleycorn, #1, written by Colin McHugh and Duncan Sly, with artwork by Colin McHugh. So this one's a real interesting book. I almost say that it's almost like an underground comic. Not quite, but it definitely falls more into that category than I think mainstream. And so what it is it's this kind of hippie guy who's a magician, but he's broke and he owes medical bills, and so there's like this collector that's following them. His partner Giuseppe, they take off to this town where they have this puppet show, and they end up meeting Griff in like a grocery store, and so Barleycorn has this idea. Hey, I'll put on this puppet show because I love puppets, and we'll make a bunch of money and we'll be able to pay the medical bills. So that's the basic premise. It's almost like I said, it's kind of an underground. It's almost like he's a hippie and he's on drugs, and the guy that the Griff that he meets has multiple hands, so he can he can do the puppet show all by himself. And it's really kind of weird. I think it's interesting up until the puppet show, and then the puppet show just becomes this really weird stream of like no, I don't want to say social justice, but kind of like something similar to that, about it's I don't know, it just gets kind of weird and kind of goes off the rails a little bit. The one thing I will say, that McHugh's artwork is really quite amazing. It's a really good looking book. I think the problem is it's just like the story kind of gets interesting, but then when it hits the puppet show, it just kind of goes off on a weird tangent, which it's not bad. It's kind of weird. And then it goes back to, oh, well, we made some money. We made enough money to pay him off for a month, so we'll kind of go to our next adventure. It's not bad. It was just weird, and like I I didn't hate it, but I didn't love it. But it's definitely, like I said, the artwork's really, really good. I really like the artwork. The story just kind of, I think it lost focus and kind of slightly fell off the rails a little bit. So I don't know. It was that one was a tough one. Next up, we have Absolution #1, written by Peter Milligan, with artwork by Mike Deodato Jr. So what this is there's a character, Nina, who was kind of, she got into trouble. And so what it is she was set up, and so she was gonna get executed, but they found out that not that she's mental, but she had lesions on her brain, and that maybe made her a killer. So they basically kind of made a deal. So they did not so much experiments, but they did modifications to her body. Now she has to, what she's doing is to get to absolution. So what it is think about like Survivor, where, you know, she's like a contestant, sort of. She has to like earn her way, and people watch her, and then they vote whether she's doing a good job on the. So she's going on her first mission after this guy Lloyd Nixon, who, you know, needs to be taken out. And so people vote, you know, hey, she killed her guards. Oh, well, she only threw the guy off the roof. That was kind of boring. So it's kind of like, I think it's a good idea, but it's also like an idea that like, it feels like you've kind of read this before. It's like, it's not particularly original. And I think the thing is, Milligan, I think, has some good ideas here, but he never quite spins it into something like fresh and like something I like need to continue. I mean, the first issue read fine, but it just didn't, it felt like I've been there, done that. Deodato's artwork it's a really good looking book. I think the thing is, it doesn't feel that fresh. It doesn't feel stale, but it just never quite takes off. It's kind of like, oh, okay, that's nice. And like I said, it's nice while you're reading it. It doesn't really leave much of an impression afterwards. Next up, we have The Closet #2, written by James Tynan IV, with artwork by Gavin Fullerton. So after the events, so we know that that Jamie there's a monster in the closet, or some looks like an alien, who knows. But they're moving to Portland from New York. So Jamie and Tom are driving there. The wife's she's already there to start her job. So they stop at an old friend of Tom's, Mac's place, as kind of a layover. And so anyways, so they get there, and then they put Jamie to bed, and then they're out talking, and then so we know that the monster's kind of following him, and he is, and then there's I don't want to reveal kind of what happens, but it's kind of freaky at the end of this for the second issue. It's pretty wild visually what this monster does. It's really interesting, because I think what I like about the story is kind of a slow burn, like we know about this monster and stuff, but there's kind of like that human, you know, just the dialogue and stuff between Tom and Mac is really quite interesting. How, you know, the Mac and his wife used to live in New York, and how they kind of lost touch, but they're still friends. It's really interesting, and like I said, it's one of those, the story moves along, not a lot, but it really just does kind of open up the fact that we saw the monster went into a crate, and we thought, oh, well, he shouldn't theoretically be with him. So that's kind of the interesting thing. Is he like attached to this kid? We don't know, but it's pretty wild. And the other thing, Fullerton, once again, I really have to hand it to him. There's a lot of just people talking in this issue, and visually he makes it very interesting, and that's not easy to do. So that's really a sign of a good artist. So it's really an interesting book. I really like the second issue, where it's really super creepy, and it's kind of a slow burn creepy, and I really like that. So definitely check it out if you haven't read the first issue. Check it out. I'm really liking where this story is going. Next up, we have Poison Ivy #2, written by G. Willow Wilson, with artwork by Marcio Takara. So Pam has stopped at a diner, and she's on her plan to kind of she's kind of on a killing spree, but really her goal is to have the rebalance nature with humans, and that's and of course her version is skewed because she's like, well, people just need to die and that'll fix nature, which is kind of like it's not that she's doing anything per se evil. In a lot of ways it makes sense what she's doing, but it's also like she's kind of going about it like a bit of the wrong way. But what's interesting, while she's in this diner, there's a woman, Jenny, who just like, this diner's really busy, and she's like, oh, well, you had an empty seat, so I'm, she's like a starving poet, and they strike up a conversation. It's really quite interesting. And then her and Pam, like, kind of like, well, the cops recognize one of them or both of them. And then, of course, she starts, Ivy starts, killing people, or, and it's really interesting. I'm really liking what Wilson is doing with Ivy. I think she's really got really into the character. She's really unlocked that thing of where she once again, her character is very much gray area. She's not really bad, and she's not really good, but she's really powerful. And I think Wilson has really captured all these facets and put it into this story. It's really, really quite fascinating. And Takara's artwork is just really gorgeous. I love the first issue, and this second issue really hit the ground running. And I'm very excited to see where this story goes, because this is good stuff. I really, really like it. Definitely check it out. Next up, we have Captain America: Sentinel of Liberty #2, written by Jackson Lansing and Colin Kelly, with artwork by Carmen Canero. Now, I wasn't particularly overwhelmed by the first issue. I will say I liked how they kind of got Steve Rogers back to basic. He's Captain America. He's kind of lost in time, which is always he's from the 40s, now he's in the present day. They're using a bit of that fish out of water thing. But I think in the second, like I said, the first issue was okay. It just didn't. It was kind of like when I was telling the guys, the guys at the comic shop, it's if you haven't read Captain America or not really super familiar with recent Captain America stories, admittedly, this is a really good book for kind of first time readers or people that aren't really into the continuity or have read a lot of Captain America books. But it's also where, if you have read a lot, if you're very familiar with Captain America and different runs of them, I think that's where I'm struggling with the book. Is it's not bad, it's just kind of okay. It's not bad, but it's not great either. It's okay. And I read the second issue, I gave it a shot, and it's fine. It's nice, but there really isn't anything. I don't think there. It seems like it's almost too safe. It's as if it's safe. It's very basic superhero stuff, and that's all nice, but it's not anything compelling. So if you're not a huge, if you haven't read a lot of Captain America, then this book might be really good for you. But I think more seasoned readers are going to be in the same boat with me, where it's not bad, it's just okay, and it's just not anything really too exciting. I will say the artwork by Carnero is actually it's a good looking book. That is not an issue with it. And once again, I don't think the story is bad. I just don't think it's anything really. I think it's better for new readers than seasoned readers. I think that's really the best way to look at it. Next up, we have Dark Crisis #2, written by Joshua Williamson, with artwork by Daniel Sampre. So, once again, this is DC's big event book for the summer. And it's a crisis. Everything's a crisis. DC has crises all the time. So this is a dark crisis. The Justice League is apparently dead, and so the rest of the heroes. So this issue really centers around the Teen Titans and the Titans Academy, where the all the villains is because it's Justice League dead, but now the villains aren't. So they attack. So they're attacking. Titans Towers, and the assumption is they're also attacking other heroes because they want to take over the world. Big surprise. So really, this is Nightwing, Dick Grayson, really defending Titans Academy, and Deathstroke is leading the villains on the rampage, and so that's really basically what this issue really entails. And it was fine. I don't think it really moved the needle story-wise. I think it had some neat fight scenes and everything. But it seemed like just an extended, chapter. It didn't really... I didn't feel it moving story-wise really forward. I mean, there were some things that happened in the story. But overall, it wasn't a big push. So... even though I was kind of surprised that I liked the first issue, it's not that the second issue is bad. It's just I would have hoped the story, you would have moved the story along, because we've got, it's 7 issues. So I'm not disappointed. I'm a little iffy after this. I will say Sam Pre's, the art is great. The art's really nice. And it's not that the story's bad. The story's okay. It just didn't really move the needle, forward a lot with the story, but I don't think it's a complete disaster yet. Next up, we have Twig, number 3, written by Scotty Young, with artwork by Kyle Stratham. Once again, I love this book. This book is so good. So Twig he's on the mission to fix the crystal, and so he has to do certain things. So what it is, he gets. Along the way, he finds some fruit on the ground from a tree, but it's actually a trap. And so what it is this creature's going to basically skin him. He's going to eat him, but he's going to sell his skin because he's kind of a rare creature. So you're like, oh, that's messed up. And so he escapes, but it's really just like this journey. I guess you could say it's kind of like a Lord of the Rings type thing where he has to go do certain things. But there's just, like I said, it's not a hugely deep story or anything, but it's really just, it's so charming. This book is amazingly charming. The story is charming, and the artwork by Stratham is just gorgeous. This is a great looking book. And it's one of those things, it's pretty basic. He goes along, he needs to do this, but he kind of runs into problems along the way. Big surprise. Look, you've read this book a million times, but here's what Young does, is he makes sure that you're having fun along the way, that you're enjoying it. And that's really, he's really not trying to reinvent the wheel here, which is really the smart move. He's just telling a good story and telling it well. And then once again, you have Stratham's artwork that just really is beyond icing on the cake. It is a gorgeous looking book, and it's sweet, it's fun, I love this book. I can't wait to see how this story ends. Next up, we have Deadbox number 3, written by Mark Russell, with artwork by Benjamin Sema. Now, as we all know, I am a huge Mark Millar fan, but I have to say I'm really kind of losing interest in this story. I think it's one of those where it's a good idea, where there's this red box type thing, and so when people kind of rent a movie, it has something to do with that individual story. And this one really is about a guy who's into guns, and he's watching the grandkids, and he rents this. Basically, think of a Disney movie, but instead of cute characters, they're cute guns, and it's all nice and everything. But I think it's just it's just not landing really well, which is odd for Russell because I get what he's trying to do. I think really what the problem with this is, I think it's a good idea for maybe 1 or 2 issues, but now we're in the 3rd issue and we're just kind of like, we're kind of doing the same thing, and it's like, okay, I get it, but really there's not much point beyond like the basic premise here, and I think it's not landing really well, which is really, for me, very odd with Russell. I don't think it's terrible. It's just kind of like, it's okay, and I know that he's better than this, so I'm not quite sure what's going on here. Seema's artwork's nice. I think it's a little better. He's gotten a little better as it's gone along. The first issue was really rough. I think it's a little bit more consistent. I will say I liked his cute gun movie. It looked great, but story wise, it's not clicking, and I'm really just kind of sad about it. So I think I might have to bail on this one. Next up, we have The Amazing Spider-Man number 5, written by Zeb Wells, with artwork by John Romita Jr. And he does the pencils, and Scott Hanna does the inks. So this is so this finishes off the first story arc. So Tombstone, as we know, has set up Peter to take out the Rose gang, because he's gonna take over the city, via he wants to be the head of the mob. So that has happened. So Digger was going to go back to the Rose gang, but he drives by and the police are there, and he's like, all right, keep moving. So what Spider-Man does, he does the opposite thing of where he has Digger go after Tombstone's men, gang. And so that's kind of, so what they basically, so then Spider-Man goes to Tombstone's house, and it becomes a stalemate because he's got dirt on Spider-Man, Spider-Man's got dirt on him. So it's kind of like, well, it's kind of, they've now hit a wall. So really that kind of, it's, even though it's not a spectacular ending, it's actually a really nice ending. I have to give Wells that I really enjoyed this first story arc. Now, once again, it's not a story that necessarily blew me away, but I think it was solid, and I just haven't really read a solid Spider-Man story in quite a while, so I really like this. And once again, I think Romita's doing a pretty decent job, although it's a little hit and miss here and there, but I will say it's consistently, it's not that scratchy art that I'm not really a big fan of. But overall, I think it's fun, so it'll be interesting to see. The next issue is the quote-unquote 600, I think, 600 or 900. 900, they're saying. I don't know, whatever. So it's going to be a special issue, so we'll see what happens there. But overall, I think the first story arc landed pretty well, so I think it's kind of worth checking out. Next up, we have Batman 89, number 6, written by Sam Hamm, with artwork by Joe Quinones. This one has been a long time coming. I think this has been months late. The good news, it does wrap everything up with the Billy D. Williams as Two-Face, as what was originally going to be planned, had Burton stayed on for the third film. And so I love how this story mixes both the first, basically the Burton verse. He keeps everything within the Burton verse, but he also did things that were sort of planned, that there was going to be a Robin, a black Robin. I think Marlon Wayans was going to play him, but it does have the Selena Kyle, the Michelle Pfeiffer Catwoman in it, and of course the Michael Keaton. The artwork I really have to give it to Quinones. It really is a great looking book. It's been a lot of fun. I love. It landed really well in the finale. It tied up all the ends, but it does leave, that there could be more stories. Not that it's like to be continued. It's just that it's just like any continuation. It's, things have been set up to where if there is they decide to do a second miniseries, they can lead off with things from this storyline. It's been a lot of fun, just like Superman 78 was really good. These are a lot of fun. It's a great nostalgia trip for us that grew up on those films and everything. And there is a hardcover collection coming out to collect those. So if you've missed it, and like I said, I know this last issue was really really late. So, but if you're a fan of the Tim Burton Batmans, then definitely check this out. And finally, this week we have Firepower number 22, written by Robert Kirkman, with artwork by Chris Samnee. And as I always say, this is the best book you are not reading. It's kind of a real shame. I think it's doing halfway decent, but this book should be selling a lot better than it is. And so we have Owen and Wei Lin have been going after Master Huang, because he's been possessed by the snake. So they've gotten together all the other masters. So they finally rescue Huang and cut the snake off from him. So he comes, he's not possessed anymore. So now they've gotten the other masters together because they have to go after the dragon, and basically once again Owen's firepower is one of the few things that hopefully can take this dragon down. So that's where this issue kind of leads up to. This is, like I said, I really love this book, and as I've always said, I'm not the hugest Kirkman fan, but I really like this, and I think most of it really has to do with the collaboration with Chris Samnee, who his artwork's amazing. He is just a stunning artist, but what him and Kirkman are putting together in this book, that's why it's working so well. I also love the fact that Owen, has a family, and that's a key part of this story. That he not only has to save the world, but he has to save his family, and that's like really important. And he has to break the news to the kids who want to, hey, we want to go off and help Dad because we have the firepower too. And he's like, no, because I don't want to lose you, and I don't want to have to you can affect how I do this. It's really the story's really good. I really love this book. There are trades of the first couple storylines, leading up to this. I can't recommend this book is enough. It's just really wonderful. Great story, great art. Really check it out, please. It's really just a wonderful book. That's going to do it. It was a lot of books this week. It was a ton of books this week. As always, public service announcement. I get all my comics at Pulp Fiction Comics, Long Beach, California. Ryan runs a great store, and it's just Annie, Eduardo, Derek, Wendy. It's a great store. It's a great comic store. They offer discounts. They have a pull service. You get a discount on your new comics. They offer discounts on their trades and graphic novels. They have a real, Annie runs has a nice selection of manga. She's really good about keeping that stocked and everything. There is a sister store, Pulp Fiction Comics, Culver City. Chris and her team run that. It's the same name, separate stores, separate owners. But if you're up in the more metro LA area, check it out. And please support your local comic shop. Times are still tough. Trust me, it's prices are up everywhere. So, but make sure you support your local comic shop. Pick up your books when they come out, because they have to pay for them in advance. So don't leave them hanging. And we always end our show with please be kind. Things are tough right now. And trust me, I know things are tough all around. And also, please be safe. It looks like things are getting a little rough again with COVID. So please take care of yourselves. Mask up. It's really important to take care of yourself. It looks like we may be on an upswing again. So please be careful out there. Take care of yourselves. Stay healthy. Stay safe. Be kind to each other. And that's going to do it this week. Thanks for watching. As always, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We appreciate it. And we'll be back again next week with more comic reviews. This is Steven from Pop Culture Maven signing out. Take care of yourselves. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.